don't come for peace, I come for the storm. Fanboys melt quick when the truth gets warm. Soft content's high, I'm collecting those tears. Just got started, but I'm cutting through fears. I'm not here for brand deals, I'm not for sale. I expose your lies, rip off the veil.
The new console I've been waiting years for. I've been waiting pretty much the whole generation for.
What, to get a Switch Pro? Congratulations, that's what you got.
It's here. And I spent Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's 96, plus I got mine a little early, so 100-hour review of Nintendo Switch 2.
Congratulations, would you like a brownie button for getting a little early? I still would like to know how you got yours so damn early compared to everybody else.
I'm beyond excited to share these thoughts with you. I've been baking them and boiling them over the weekend, and I'm going to do my best to stay on track. We're going to cover the system itself, the games and accessories, and then what's next.
Well, let's hope that he can be honest again. Surprisingly, in the last video, he was actually a little bit honest. Not completely, but he's getting there. Let's see if we finally got through to him.
I thought that the system build quality was super impressive. I was like, whoa, Nintendo, they took things to the next level.
Well, it's a good thing you can't see the inside of it because we know those Joy-Cons aren't no next level. Exact same mechanism as the first Joy-Cons.
And my brother made this interesting point, like, why wasn't this what the Switch 1 felt like? And it's like, well, so that they could make it better. They learned, they grew, they improved. And the Switch 2 is just...
They learned, they improved. Yeah, they did improve a little bit on it, but let's not act like this is a generational leap here. Literally, they marketed as the next gen console for Nintendo and literally gave you a Switch Pro. That's all you got.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal to play and hold. And I've heard people say, like, they still think it's too uncomfortable, it's a little too heavy. Dude, this Switch 2 is my favorite portable to play, probably of all time.
PSP will always still be the better one.
I think I can already establish that. I'm giving it the crown, baby. It's better than my Steam Deck OLED. It's way better than the Switch 1. I think I even prefer it to the Game Boy Advance of yesteryear because the screen is like 18 times the size.
Well, that's what happens when you're a corporate shill. It would not surprise me to find out if Nintendo did send him a review unit. And we all know, if Nintendo sends people review units, they handpick those people.
This system feels great in hands. It's of supreme build quality. The Joy-Con do not wobble.
Supreme quality, my ass. Yes, it appears like that. The outside actually does feel premium and does feel like a supreme quality. But if you take apart those controllers, they are almost exactly the same as the other ones. They're bigger. Yeah, they do have some micro adjustments to them, but I seriously doubt that those micro adjustments are going to save that thing from stick drifting. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I really do. But I have a strong feeling we're going to be seeing a lot of stick drift soon.
I think one of the biggest increases here for me is that I can play portably and not feel like I'm missing out.
I mean, if you had a Switch 1 and you loved the Switch 1 that much, of course you weren't going to feel like you were left out. So let's get to the point already. Get on with this.
The Joy-Con sticks, triggers, and size are all improved enough, increased enough, that I don't feel like I'm getting a half experience when I'm playing just with the Joy-Con in portable mode.
Come on, Zachy. There's a reason why they gave you that thing that I'm looking at right now. If they didn't sit there and give that to you, then you would have went and bought one. You got that. You're going to play with that over using a single Joy-Con, because using a single Joy-Con, they are not fun to use.
I've been loving all the games from Mario Kart World, the Cyberpunk 2077, to Kanutsugami, to Pipistrello, and the Cursed Yo-Yo, an indie gem that I decided to give a roll on this thing portably, as well as docked. And I've been floored by the graphics. I mean,
come on, Zach. You played Borderlands. You said you're a huge Borderlands fan, so I know you've either played on a PC or a PS5 or an Xbox. You can't sit there and tell me that those graphics from Mario Kart World look dramatically better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. There's a slight improvement in graphics. More than anything, it just looks buttery smooth is all it does. It looks like it's in higher frame rate, but the graphics do not look that much better.
I made a whole video talking about how like Hogwarts Legacy and Fast Fusion and Fortnite and all these games just look ridiculous. Even the ones that they brought ahead with updates like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Congratulations. You also want to know what comes with updates? The PS5, the PS5 or the PS5 Pro. The PS5 Pro gets updates that the regular PS5 didn't get. It's probably because what you're playing with is nothing more than a Switch Pro.
Even a game like Batman Arkham Knight that ran like absolute cat poop on Switch 1, it's doing its thing on Switch 2.
Congratulations, yes, the third party's games look amazing on the Switch too. Why don't the first party games? Yes, Mario Kart World looks great, Fast Fusion looks great, but Mario Kart World does not dramatically look better than the Switch 1 first-party titles. When you're supposed to have a new generation, the bare minimum is to have the first-party titles look amazing. They're supposed to look like you could not get them on the previous console.
Like, it doesn't reinvent the game. It doesn't make it all brand new. But you try to play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on a Switch 1, and then come over to the Switch 2 side.
Yes, because Game Freak chose not to fix it on the Switch 1. They chose to give it an update for the Switch 2. You don't think that they couldn't have done that? They chose not to. You guys didn't give them any incentive. When it comes to giving an update supposedly for a new system, that's the bare minimum. Or for a mid-gen refresh system, that's the bare minimum, Zach.
And see how you feel. I think Nintendo has reached this pinnacle that I don't know that they've had since maybe the Super Nintendo?
Are you kidding me? The N64 looked dramatically better than the Super Nintendo. The GameCube looked dramatically better than the N64. So how are you going to sit there and say like, oh, it hasn't reached this pinnacle? You're making no sense.
Where the technology and the creativity are coming together. They're reaching a peak of the curve at the same time. Nintendo is killing it with the game design. They're in a super great place, like I'd say like a golden era with so many of their franchises.
The third parties are killing it with the game design, but Mario Kart World did not kill it with the game design. Let's not pretend like Mario Kart World is this next great achievement for Nintendo. It doesn't look that much better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
And now they have the tech to back it up. They've got HDR, they got 4K, they got DLSS. They're doing both.
For how long, Zach? The PS6 and the new Xbox is right around the corner.
And I feel like the Nintendo I've known most of my life has been a Nintendo that kind of veered towards the creative at the expense of the technology.
Zach, they still have, and I'm not trying to downplay the Nintendo Switch 2, but let's not act like the Switch 2, hardware-wise, is on par with a PS5, PC, or Xbox, because it's not.
And you could even say that the Switch 1 fell into that trap and it grew long in the teeth after years, right? We were like, dude, these games don't look good at all anymore. Nintendo stuff, art style, they're able to capitalize.
Well, Switch 1 games never looked amazing to begin with. They were good enough for the time. Yeah, they needed to make something better because once you got to the PS5, it was definitely showing its age right there. That's why people were screaming for like a Switch Pro or a new Switch.
But the third-party stuff, it's a much weaker version. And I don't feel like that. I want to play every game on this system. I wish that there were more games on this system. I wish that third parties went gung-ho at the launch, and some of them did, but...
Well, that's not good for all third-party go gung-ho like that and just release so many games, because not everybody's like you where they can do this full-time. People have lives. People have to sit here and go to work. Your job is literally to play and review this stuff.
Like, dude, Ubisoft should have launched with Star Wars Outlaws. I'd play that game on this.
Zach, you are becoming a detriment to Nintendo. That game should never come to the Switch 2. That is not a game to be begging for. Star Wars Outlaws was bashed horribly for a reason, Zach. A lot of people do not want to play that game. Do you realize that they bring that game over, they're going to try to charge you guys $60, $70, and they're going to rip you guys off even further? Why are you trying to get the Nintendo fans ripped off even more?
EA should have brought the Jedi Survivor games right away to Switch 2. I would play those immediately.
My guy, you are not the average consumer. You cannot expect all of them to bring all those games at once for day one. That is not how that works. It is very normal to not have that many games at launch for a new system. You know, you guys got so many games at launch compared to other ones, especially compared to the Switch 1.
So many people out there are trying to downplay the upgrade that the Switch 2 is. They're trying to tell you that it's not as good as people are saying, and I think they're just flat out wrong.
Nah, Zach, you're the one that's wrong. You're overhyping this system, but what do we expect from a corporate shill bootlicker like you? The system, yes, it is dramatically better than the Switch 1, but it is not dramatically better enough to be considered a new console. It's nothing more than a Switch Pro.
And that's not something that Nintendo typically does. They'll blow you away with their gameplay, put your hands on the controller, and you feel amazing, but then once you get to certain areas of the system, you know, you're like, okay, well, it's a Nintendo system.
it still has that. When you look at their first party game, when you sit there and play Mario Kart World, it does exactly that as you're describing. Yes, at first it blows you away until you find out that the free roam is boring, there's no incentive to do the P switches, and then you're just stuck doing the Grand Prix and the Knockout Tour. Yeah, it's nice that you get 24 racers. Maybe it wouldn't have looked as good on the Switch 1, but I honestly do think that they could have sat there and got this working on the Switch 1. Honestly, the whole free roam idea, I understand that it was a selling point for it, but they didn't nail it.
And I don't feel like we say that anymore. I feel like we say, like, this is just a powerhouse. This is usurping my Steam Deck. This is usurping my ROG Ally. This is obviously usurping my Switch 1.
Well, I would hope so. It just came out, but just wait in a year or two. It's already outdated compared to a PS5 and Xbox. Just wait in a year or two. It's going to be even further outdated. It's going to be 2 generations behind again.
This system is the true successor to the Switch, and it's not a Switch Pro.
Yes, it is. Stop lying.
I think a lot of people love that train of thought. They love to make a video saying it's just a Switch Pro. They love to make an article saying it's just a Switch Pro. And I'm here to tell you that I think they're wrong.
And that's okay. You're entitled to your own opinion, Zach, even if it's wrong. But we're not the ones that are wrong. You are just overhyping this system. So it's either you're just being delusional or you're sitting here lying on Nintendo's behalf to make Nintendo look better.
I think this is straight up a Switch 2. And I'll tell you what, if it was a PlayStation, it would be a PlayStation 2.
Number one, Zach, when you look at a PS1 and a PS2, they don't even look the same. They don't even look like they belong in the same generation. You look at them two, you can tell one is next gen compared to the other. Honestly, you wouldn't even know it was PlayStation unless they slapped the logo on it. If you sat there and removed Nintendo Switch from the Switch and the Switch 2, you would still think that that was the exact same system, just a different model. So your train of thought right now makes absolutely no sense.
PlayStation doesn't have to come in with a crazy brand new never before seen gimmick to be a true successor.
No, they don't have to, but what they come with is hardware. What they come with is graphics. Each one of their new games had way better graphics. Some has some better gameplay mechanics, but a lot of it had to do with the graphics. If you look at the graphics from the PS1 to the PS2, PS2 to PS3, so on and so forth, you could tell that it got graphically a lot better. When it came between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2, looking at Mario Kart World, it does not look that much graphically better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Xbox doesn't either. Nintendo, though, is required to reinvent the wheel in order to be defined as a number 2?
No, but it needs to be believable that you can't play like the first party games on the previous system. And then you sit there and look at the startup screen. If they wanted to make it different, they could have sat there and had the startup screen different. I think this is like the first console I have ever seen where you start up the previous console apparently, and then the next gen console, the startup screens look exactly the same. Everything about it is almost exactly the same.
This is a number 2 because it does everything better. It's enhanced, it's improved, and its library is going to expand significantly.
Everything you literally just said outside of the library literally justified what a mid-gen refresh console is.
Because the franchises and games it's now capable of playing.
Well, that still remains to be seen. Even with Fast Fusion or the Welcome Tour, I think that those games could have been played on the Switch 1. They don't look like no powerhouses.
Rest assured, when you buy a Switch 2, you are getting the sequel to the Switch.
No, you're not. You're full of shit.
Not the half step, not the mid-cycle upgrade, nothing of the sort. You are getting a Switch 2.
Fine. How about a Switch Pro and a half?
A straight up Switch 2, and I am so grateful for that.
Oh, you're perfect for this Nintendo corporate life, aren't you? It don't take much to make you happy or surprise you.
Bit of lacking, like, okay, this new console is so awesome, and all I have is Mario Kart World. And there's not really any other exclusives outside of Fast Fusion, so...
My guy, it's literally the launch. How many first-party titles do you expect? It's not like there isn't other ones to play. You can sit there and go play Cyberpunk 2077. You got the Yakuza game. You got Split Fiction. You got so many games. Hogwarts Legacy. You got so many games that you could play that you did not play on that Switch 2. I understand not wanting to replay the Switch 1 games, but don't sit there and tell me in 100 hours you beat all those games already. There is no way.
What do you play? What do you do? And then I kind of just let myself explore, okay? I let myself check out Knutsu. I let myself check out Cyberpunk 2077. I put on Pipistrello, which is a Switch 1 game.
See, there you go. You played the other games.
Its $450 price tag. I give the Switch 2 launch an absolute 9.8 out of 10.
You seriously give that launch a 9.8 out of 10. How the, or 9 point something, whatever you just said, that's way too high of a score. Come on. And there is no way. I want to know what your ranking is for Mario Kart World. You need to come out with that one.
I think this console is nearly perfect, and it's just getting started. It's only going to get better as time goes on.
It would be better if it was a Switch 2 and not a Switch Pro.
It loses 0.2 points for the storage. I wish they just included a little bit more. I kind of do wish there was a few more third-party games and themes.
Dude, you got quite a few third-party games. There's no way you beat all those games since that Switch 2 has been out, but most likely you already played them on other consoles. And when it comes to themes, yeah, they should have had those.
I'm going to hold you to it, Switch. Where are the themes? Themes would have gained you 0.1 points. And themes don't impact my experience, but it's just another one of those novelty things that I think will make this system grow even bigger.
Well, another thing it should have had was a brand new startup screen where it would have looked different from the Switch 1. That would definitely have helped also.
Be even better. And just wait, 3 or 4 years down the line, this Switch 2 is going to be even a supreme version of itself.
Yeah, no, it won't, because the Switch wasn't like that. The Switch started going downhill after that because it couldn't handle any of the third-party games that were coming out on the newer consoles.
And then they're going to release the iterations, which they're going to get me because a better Switch 2, like how do you do that? And if they figure it out, we are so in trouble wallet-wise.
What do you mean our wallets are going to be in trouble? They're already in trouble. Are you kidding me, Zach? You want to know how they could have made it better? If they would have made a real Switch 2 and not made a Switch Pro and disguised it as a next-gen console.
Thanks for doing exactly what I wanted, which is an awesome Switch. It is a sequel. It is a 2. If Sony can do it, so can Nintendo.
I swear, Zach, you have no standards in life. You must sit there and suffer from IQ deficiency or something. You're going to sit there and compare that to a PlayStation? It's not comparable. When you look at the PS1 to the PS2 or the 2 to the 3, so on and so forth, you can tell that they were different consoles. You can tell they did not belong in the same generation. You can't tell with that one, but you love Nintendo so much that you're willing to accept their lies and continue drinking their Kool-Aid. Well, that's it for my reaction. Let me know down in the comments if you agree with me or not. Please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, if you get this video up to 250 likes, I will release the full version of the song from the intro and outro. And until next time, stay vigilant.
You can cry in the comments, but you won't survive. Like and subscribe if you feel that vibe. We're hot and salty tears.